Hello, everyone. On behalf of IBM Systems Magazine, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation. My name is Janine Donnelly. I'm the manager of webinars for IBM Systems Magazine, and I will be the moderator for today's event. We will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You may ask a question at any time during the event by entering it into the Q&A panel. If you experience technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the Q&A panel to alert us, and someone will assist you. You may download a PDF version of the slide deck by clicking on the drop-down menu labeled Event Resources. You'll find that on the left side of your screen, and you can download those right from the platform without being disconnected from the webinar. Today's webinar, results of the 13th Annual Mainframe Survey, Mainframe's Bright Future, is sponsored by BMC Software. Our featured speakers today are John McKinney and Alan Warhurst. As Vice President of Strategy for Z Solutions Optimization at BMC Software, John leads the product management and solutions marketing teams for Mainframe Solutions. Alan has been in the IT industry for over 16 years and at BMC since 2014. He's currently a product manager in the ZSO organization, responsible for storage management products as well as overall product strategy. In addition, he has special responsibility for the Mainframe Advisory Council and the Mainframe Survey. So today, John and Alan will reveal the results of BMC's 13th Annual Mainframe Survey, always one of our most popular events. So without further ado, John, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Great, and thank you, Janine. Al and I really enjoy being here again with IBM Systems Magazine. It's a lot of fun for us to pour through our data each year, and it's even more fun when we get to share the research results. We believe that our research into the mainframe is the largest of its kind that's published on an annual basis. And this year, we had 1,122 respondents. That's across 35 countries. More than 20 different industries were represented, every geography, and we had this year respondents from every generation as well. So if there's interest, as Janine said, we can share more on the demographics from this year's survey in our Q&A at the end. And we share research each year with the mainframe community so that you guys can gain a little bit more insight into how other organizations think about their mainframes as part of their IT environment, and also to learn a little bit more about how others are evolving their use of the mainframes in support of their business needs. So we have some new and exciting things to share this year. So let's begin. This year's survey confirms, the upward momentum shift that we're seeing within our own client base. As we talk to clients, we see that modernization and transformation efforts are underway. We see optimism for the platform increasing, which is why we believe the mainframe's future is bright. We see a continued evolution of this really incredible platform as organizations are embracing and taking advantage of newer technologies as they modernize their environments. As you see here, 82% are using Java. We've reported on Java usage for a number of years, and this represents up 7 points from last year. 48% said they're now practicing agile DevOps practices in their mainframe environment, and 13% more say they have plans to do so. And Alan will share more a bit later on some of the other things we're seeing around modernization. We continue to see a diversity change among the mainframe workforce as organizations are engaging more younger and career professionals. 63% of our respondents this year were under the age of 50. So that's up 10 points from just last year. And in fact, 12% of the respondents this year are now under the age of 30. We're also seeing more women in the workforce. 23% of the overall respondents were women. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later as well. We also see more platform growth and more optimism as our clients and the survey data shows that Clients are saying their mainframes are really able to handle the increasing demands that their organizations face as part of their digital business transformations. And in fact, 93% of the executives this year responded saying they believe in the long-term viability of the platform. As Janine said, we've been doing this survey for 13 years. That's the highest level of executive confidence that we've ever seen in our survey. We're also seeing a greater recognition and appreciation for the platform's strengths of availability and security. And we believe that that's also a bit of why we see more in terms of the abilities overall platform, the IBM Z platform, to handle the increasing digital business workloads. So let's take a little bit more about the strengths of this platform as people reported to us this year. In most industries, as we talk to clients, we hear that there is a continued focus on digital transformation. And they're really telling us, they're using digital technology in all areas of their business to try to operate and deliver new services to their clients. So when you think about that, it's not really that surprising to see in this year's respondents that they really increasingly value what many have said are the IBM Z's platform's traditional strengths of availability and security, especially when you think about the Internet of Things, the 24/7 mobile connected world that we're all living in. And in fact, the executives this year put availability and security at the top of their list in terms of platform strengths, and those increased in importance from 2017. And when we talk to our clients, BMC clients tell us that the mainframes are really the digital backbone of their business. Most of our clients are using the mainframe as part of their multi-layer application architectures. So they're leveraging the mainframe as that powerful back-end data server to process growing transaction volumes and growing data volumes. And those views are pretty consistent with the data that's reflected in this year's survey. And so I think that supports why we see centralized data server and the transaction throughput ranking as the third and fourth most valued platform strength. Interestingly, if you look at the large shops, and we define large shops as those shops that have more than 10,000 MIPS, they're very upbeat on the platform strength as well, and actually even stronger so than the population at large. So you can see the stats here, but a lot of support and belief in the availability and transaction throughput tie for the 72%, but security and centralized data server are also high at 69% within the large shops. So let me also point you out the little white arrow that you might see in the middle of the bar graph. And that's the availability of new technology. And if we look at all the responses and the different things that people could look at in terms of the platform strengths, this one moved up the most sharply in the last year. So that's basically saying that the availability of new technology is more appreciated, more understood. It's up 6 points from a year ago. And we believe that the combination of these platform strengths are why the platform is the most trusted platform available. The Mainframe Z platform is purpose-built to really run the growing workloads that are created by digital business transformations. And in fact, we believe it's because of that ability and because of these strengths that we're seeing increasing activity levels on the mainframe. So Alan, if you would, how about walking us through what we're seeing in terms of those changing activity levels?
Certainly, John, and hello everyone. So yeah, as John's talked about, the strengths of the platform are clearly aligned with a number of the effects that digital business causes on all of IT infrastructure. And as we look at particularly the mainframe stuff, we started tracking this probably 2 or 3 years ago. We see increases across the board. So more than half of respondents say that transaction volumes, data volumes, and the unpredictability of their workload has increased. But along with that, not just the increasing activity levels, we're also seeing an increased rate of change in the environment. So the speed of application change and the number of databases has increased for a significant portion as well, again, nearly that half. One of the other areas that we wanted to understand, and we've been tracking now for a couple of years, is around the amount of data that sits on the mainframe, because There are people who say, well, that's okay, but the mainframe's a little bit in the corner, it might be getting a bit busier. More than half of respondents believe that more than half of their data sits on the mainframe. And what this is leading to is an increase in MIPS growth. So 60% of respondents believe that they're going to see MIPS growth over the next 12 months. And that's kind of the highest level that we've seen doing this survey for the past 3 years. When it starts to get really interesting is when we then look again at those larger shops, those shops that are more than 10,000 MIPS. That picture is writ large. It's even more compelling in terms of the amount of growth. So those guys, for them, 81% of people see transaction volume growth. Nearly the same number, 79%, are seeing an increase in data volume, and they too are seeing an increase in volatility to their workloads, along with that increased rate of change from an application point of view and the number of databases that are supporting it. And those large shops actually storing more data on their mainframe. So 64% say they've got more than half of their data sat on the mainframe. And they are... Today they're large shops, but they're actually accelerating their rate of growth. So 70% of those guys have a positive outlook in terms of MIPS growth over the next 12 months. So John, how are these activities driving people's priorities?
So thanks, Alan. So with this much change and growth in the mainframe activity due to the changing digital environment, there are really some interesting comparisons between what respondents said were their priorities and their challenges. So we'll start with the priorities. And given what we said and what we shared, it's really probably not very surprising that ensuring application availability is consistently a top priority. And when we talk to clients and in this survey data, what we found was when they talk about where they're trying to improve, right? So where are they trying to improve and how are they trying to improve application availability? The focus areas that were most cited were faster problem determination, visibility into the end-to-end performance, the elimination of planned outages, and improved automation. So those were the top 4 most cited focus areas for improving application availability. If we then looked at how executives viewed this, they ranked faster problem resolution and improved automation as their top 2 improvement areas. And I think that also talks to the focus around modernization. So looking at how they might use improved automation to improve application availability kind of gets into the modernization. So in our survey, the executives ranked application modernization and data recovery higher, while the technical staff viewed application availability and application modernization as slightly higher priorities. And we'll talk a little bit more, and Alan will share a little bit more detail around modernization in a moment. So let me just spend a moment on data recovery. So we tried to understand better what was it that the executives thought was a focus area around data recovery. And what they said was they really wanted to improve the time it takes to recover from a data loss or data corruption. So that's probably not a big surprise. If you've got data recovery, it's all about how quickly can you get back up and online so that those applications are flowing smoothly. And then the second one was maybe speaks to the multi-platform architectures that exist today, and that was the second thing around data recovery was their ability to improve their multi-platform recovery capability. So that's a little bit around what executives, why they had data recovery ranked as a priority. But one thing everyone agreed on was both executives and technical staff said that both cost reduction, cost optimization, and data privacy and data compliance security were their top 2 priorities, absolutely the top 2. And I'll come back to the second in a moment because that kind of gets into the challenges. And we also see that staffing and skills is now tied for 5th and actually tied with implementing cloud technology and data recovery overall. So those were the priorities this year. And if we look at cost, we look at security, and we look at staffing and skills, those also rose to the top as the most cited challenges. So let's take a moment and we'll look at the challenges this year. So, as I said, those were the top 3 challenges, and actually they're the same as last year, the same top 3, but we do see some underlying shifts that reflect the optimism that we talked about and the optimism we see when we talk to clients and the optimism that we see overall around the mainframe platform. So while cost continues to be a challenge, it's not as strongly as it has been in years past. And in fact, cost declined 7 points with both executives and technical professionals when compared to a year ago. And another thing, the option to migrate work off the platform to control costs has declined by 10 points among executives over the last 3 years. So, according to the responses that we're seeing, obviously the goal is to try to keep expenses down, but respondents realize it's really around optimization and balancing that with their growing, the ability to really support their growing transaction and data workloads as well. So, data privacy, compliance, and security was seen as an increasing challenge year over year, which is in contrast to cost, which was decreasing. And when we drilled in on that, this was really around the area of compliance, with nearly 50% saying that compliance with regulations was their most important security issue. And in fact, well more than half of the executives said that national government regulations and GDPR were the 2 compliance areas that they were most concerned with. So the ability to really support and demonstrate they're meeting the various regulations that exist today around data security. And staffing and skills shortage, that's still a challenge, but it's really reflected at about the same level as last year. And it's consistent with what we're seeing around more and more baby boomers retiring each year. And we're going to talk more about staffing and skills in a moment. So earlier, we pointed out that executives increasingly recognize the availability of new technology on the platform. And we think that that explains a little bit why we also saw here a 6-point improvement among executives who no longer have a perception that the platform is outdated. That was once cited as one of the challenges to the platform, so we see improvement there. So we believe that the levels of modernization that we see and that we're helping our clients do is also demonstrated in the data here and the increased platform optimism that we're seeing. So Alan, let's talk a little bit more about what clients are doing in the area of modernization.
Yeah, certainly, John. So from an application modernization point of view, as John said, it's one of the top 4 priorities. 42% of people said it's a priority in the next year. Actually, if we look at the applications that are driving growth on the platform, we kind of get a really interesting picture. So as you would expect for the traditional mainframe workload, transactional systems and things like back-end data serving are key, and they're continuing to grow and to drive growth on the platform. But we're also seeing newer workloads, so things like big data, things like analytics are also in that top 4 of the key things that are starting to drive that growth. And for people that are looking to modernize those applications that sit on them, we said, okay, what is it you're trying to do when you talk about modernizing them? All of them were talking about taking on new technology, recognizing that new technology that sits on the platform to meet the challenges of digital business. And that kind of is writ large across all of the different areas. So 56% of people are looking at updating to use things like new languages, so things written in Java and those kind of pieces. But also 40% of people are looking at using new application server technologies. Nearly the same number, 39% of people are looking at using newer hardware capabilities, so things like the recent announcements around the Z14 and pervasive encryption and those kind of technologies that sit in there. And if we delve a little more into some of the technologies and the techniques that people are employing on the platform, like John said at the beginning, 82% of people now run Java, and that's increased 9 percentage points in the last 3 years. But we also see a gap closing. So we always ask, okay, how much Java have you got, but also how much Java have you got that's really running in a real production system and delivering you business value? And that number's now up to 65%, and that number's increased 11% over the last 2 years alone. So people are moving more Java into their environment, they're trying it in more places, but they're also moving into true production systems and delivering real business value from those. As John said, as they're doing and modernizing these applications, they're also interacting more with the wider enterprise. So 48% of people on the mainframe environment have deployed DevOps Agile type practices, and more of them are considering it. Another 13% are looking at it, which is really important. And they're also enabling access to their data, so embracing that wider world and picking up the ability for the mainframe to interact and play in the new digital world that exists. So 41% of large shops, those shops over 10,000 MIPS, have deployed ZOS Connect, so that they can then enable APIs and enable and participate in that whole API economy. And finally, when we talk about technology and we talk about those kind of things, one of the big concerns, but also one of the strengths of the platform, is that security layer. If you're opening up your mainframe environment, some would say your crown jewels in a lot of estates, how do you make sure that that environment remains strong and safe and secure? And this year, because it's only been available for this year, it wasn't certainly available when we ran the survey last year, we asked about pervasive encryption, IBM's latest technology that's come to the platform. And 33% of people said that they have deployed it already. A number more said that they're certainly looking at that technology, so they're looking at how they manage both the openness but also the security of this platform and to allow it to drive forward. But none of this modernization, none of this stuff will be any good if we don't have people to run the platform. So John, can you tell us a little bit about the change in the workforce?
Yes, can do, Alan. So as Alan said, right, that people are always key to any type of transformation, modernization effort. And not only are organizations modernizing and transforming their applications and their operations, but we're also seeing them begin to transform the organization itself. So this year's survey, again, it reflects a lot of what we're seeing across our client base, and that is there are, many more younger and career professionals that are working in the mainframe environment. So in this year's survey, 72% of the total respondents were Gen Zs, millennials, or Generation Xers. In fact, if you look at all the respondents now that are under the age of 50, that's now 63% of our respondents, which is a 10-point change from last year. And in fact, 12% of all of the respondents to our survey this year were under the age of 30. And interestingly enough, if you look at that under 30 age group, more than half, 51% of the under 30 age group are women. So we're seeing some interesting demographic changes. And we know this is a worldwide audience. As we said, we had a number of countries represented. So we thought we'd take a look at these demographics by geography. So, looking at it by geography, what we saw was, again, if we look at the Generation Z, Millennials, and Generation Xers, that group now represents 90% of our survey respondents in Latin America. It's 82% of those that responded in EMEA. Asia Pac, Japan was 75%, and North America, it was 63%. We also saw some differences in terms of women in the mainframe workforce. So if we look at it by geography, so women represent 33% of the respondents from Latin America, 24% from Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, 23% in North America, and just 4% in Asia Pac and Japan. So some interesting demographics that we're seeing here. So obviously, the workforce is changing as the baby boomers are retiring. And, with these new professionals coming into the workforce, we wanted to understand a little bit more about how organizations are adapting and how they're beginning to modernize the organizations themselves. So, Alan, if you would share a little bit about what we learned there.
Yeah, certainly. So from a modernization of the organization point of view, as we've already said, staffing and skills is both a high priority and considered to be a challenge for lots of people. We asked all of those people that said, yeah, we're kind of looking at what are you doing? And they're taking a variety of different approaches. So there's a number of them nearly 40% are looking at training and developing their own staff and their own people and are bringing them on through programs. Nearly a third are actually looking at bringing in new hires, so deeply inexperienced staff, and then bringing them on. Whether they be bought out of things like the IBM Academic Initiative, where they've had some exposure to the mainframe, or whether they're kind of fresh and new and they're going to bring them on. And as we talk to our clients across the world, we see a variety of different approaches that they've found to be successful. So in some places, they're working actively with universities, and in a lot of cases, certainly the bigger customers are doing that, or they're working through programs of work where they're kind of doing apprenticeship schemes and those kind of pieces. But it seems to be more prevalent now in the industry than I think we've ever seen in terms of developing that next generation of workforce, and they're seeing great value out of doing that. One of the areas we also wanted to pick up and understand was there's a perception that to learn a mainframe is a difficult thing. It's a big and complicated platform, and it takes many years to bring people up to a level of competence. So we wanted to talk to the respondents and just ask them and say, okay, how long do you think it actually takes to bring someone up to speed? And about 62% of them believe that they can do that within 4 years. There's a number of good programs that we've seen around the world in terms of approaches. We know a number of commercial companies are looking at doing those kind of things. And also the availability of simplified tooling and those kind of things certainly helps them to get that blend between the youthful exuberance and the experience, and bring the two generations together to actually drive forward the platform. So that really concludes most of the data that we were going to share now. John, what would you say is our advice to people running the mainframe and how they can take forward the platform?
Well, thank you, Alan. So as Alan said, we hope that everyone has found this data interesting and hopefully of value. We believe that the IBM Z platform continues to drive digital business now more than ever. Mobile applications, digital business practices really have effectively rewritten the way that companies and organizations are operating. And the results of our survey, we believe, show a bright future for the mainframe and how companies will continue to run and reinvent their businesses. So from our perspective, we truly do believe that the mainframe is uniquely capable of scaling to handle the ever-increasing digital business demands efficiently and securely. And from our perspective, we see 3 ways that you might consider to maximize the continued effectiveness of this platform for your organization's business objectives. And first, we would say, is evangelize the platform. There are a lot of great stories and great experiences out there and great accomplishments that many organizations are having on this platform. And we would encourage everyone to share more of that positive information, both inside, which is extremely important, inside your organization, but also outside your organization. I think that there's some momentum that's building, and those that have an interest in the mainframe community can do more together to continue to evangelize the platform. And really, as part of that, we're educating people that may not be that familiar with the platform overall. Secondly, we'd say, engage the new workforce. There are a number of younger and career professionals that are beginning to build successful careers on this platform. We would say, learn more about what's out there, what's available. There are a number of resources that Alan talked about that companies can leverage and are leveraging and using. But learn more about what you can do to engage and support the new workforce that's coming in. We've had clients in our briefing center here in Houston recently, and we had a couple of new hires for an organization that actually did not have any mainframe training whatsoever at their university. They had an MIS degree and came right in and began doing their own training using some things from IBM and others within their own organization to begin to build their mainframe skills and capabilities. So engage that new workforce. There's a number of resources available to help you do that. And then third, we'd say embrace the new innovative technologies and techniques and solutions that are out there that Alan talked about. And we see more organizations doing that, right? Whether it's using pervasive encryption, whether it's using new operations and analytics technologies, right? Whether it's using some of the new languages, whether it's using the new APIs like ZOS Connect and others. but use those, and your organization will be able to more effectively continue to transform and support everything that digital business can throw your way. So, of course, when you're looking at mainframe modernization, we'd like you to talk to BMC. We'd love to have conversations with you because we are helping clients every day modernize and transform their mainframes to better manage, their business objectives. We're providing innovative and intelligent solutions that help clients manage their systems, their data more securely. Our solutions provide advanced analytics and automation to maximize both the performance and the availability, as well as the security of the platform and your applications and your data. And we do it in a way that helps you optimize your cost and increases your team's efficiency. In the last 18 months, our BMC team has made well over 120 continuous delivery upgrades across our mainframe product portfolio, and that's a portfolio of products that span in the areas of systems management and data management and security management and cost management. And in that same time, so also in the last 18 months, we've had 21 patents granted or patents pending for new technology that's in our mainframe solution. So we are also very much continuing to evolve and deliver more modern and innovative solutions to help our clients. And we do that to help them reduce cost, with much more efficient software, proven MLC cost reduction solutions, and automation solutions that can improve your staff's productivity and improve really the speed and agility with which you can meet the demands of digital business. We help improve performance to keep your systems and applications up and performing at their peak with intelligent management, intelligent tuning, and automation solutions. We can improve availability to help ensure that your applications and your data are always available and optimized with next generation solutions that, again, use a lot of automation and that can help you eliminate the need for some of the scheduled outages that we heard and talked about earlier. And finally, we help clients mitigate their risk. So to be able to more easily deliver on your growing security and compliance requirements and ensure faster data recovery to meet your business continuity objectives. So we'd love to talk to you about what BMC might be able to do to help you and your organizations be successful with your IT and business needs. So with that, Janine, that concludes what Al and I were going to share on this year's 2018 Mainframe Research Report. We're happy to hang around here for a little bit and answer a few questions that we might have from the audience.
Great. I'm glad, John, because we have plenty. So just a couple things to call out before we get started on Q&A. For those of you that may have joined the webinar midway through, I wanted to let you know that you can download a PDF version of the slide deck and get all of this interesting and valuable information. So look at the left side of your screen, find that event resources area, click on the drop-down menu, and you'll be able to find the slide deck, and you can download that without being disconnected from the webinar. And then also note that on this thank you slide, there is a live link to get your copy of the BMC Mainframe Survey. Again, that's a live link that you can click on, and we can make those available to you right from the platform. And with that, let's get to all these questions. So first question, I'm just going to throw it out there, and then you guys can kind of talk to whether you have something specific here. But in fact, first thing you mentioned was about demographics, and this person indicates, I am interested in more demographic information. We have issues here in the Midwest finding millennial mainframers, especially database administrators. Anything you can offer there in the way of demographics, Alan?
Well, if I just, let me advance the slide ever so slightly. So from a demographics point of view, John talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the webcast. We cover as wide a range of company sizes, geographies, revenue, and all of those kind of pieces to try and get as wide a picture as possible. In terms of the staffing and the job function, it's kind of a mix between mainly technical professional, but with a significant portion of it, nearly a third, being from an executive point of view, because we want to find things about the decision makers. And what we've seen is a shifting in those demographics this year, as John said, where For under 50s, we've seen a 10% increase. That's certainly done. But that does vary by geography. So like John said, unfortunately, the US is probably got the lowest percentage of people in those younger age groups. And it also varies by industry. So, for example, financial services organisations tend to have a slightly older workforce. So I can't comment specifically on the Midwest because we don't collect the level of data down to that kind of detail. But depending upon what other types of organisations are sat around in your general locality, you may see a slightly younger or a slightly older workforce to do it. What we've, through talking with a number of our customers, what we found is that those organisations that are situated in places where there's a number of other ones together, actually they have collectively combined to try and get a programme of work going, because one of the key things around bringing in new younger staff is to actually create a community around them, to bring them in reasonable numbers so that those guys can then start to interact and to work. And we've seen a lot of success in a number of places. I think some of the guys in the Northwest have been doing that, but also in other geographies, places like Australia and Switzerland and those kind of areas where people are combining their work together. So it's certainly coming, and we see it developing more. You know, things like IBM's academic initiative. I know they're working with a number of colleges across all sorts of locations, and I'd encourage you to reach out to IBM to find out one that's local to you, to pick up and drive forward with talking to those guys and bringing people in, because there is ever more interest in doing it. There's more. We were talking to some of the people of ours that have been at Share recently, and the number of young people there was quite astounding. You know, there's a real effort, I think, by the entire Z community to bring in the next generation of workforce and to educate them and to bring them into the platform. And in talking to those people, there's a great deal of enthusiasm about what the platform is, what it can do, and how it can go forward.
Wow.
Yeah, Jeannie, I'll just kind of add. Sorry, I was just going to add, because the question was about the Midwest. And so the little anecdote that I shared was actually from a Midwestern company. So, it was at one of our data management briefings where we share with clients how we help them manage their database systems. And the individual, they had two folks from this company, and one of them graduated from the university back in the spring. So he was literally just employed a couple of months. You know, I asked him at lunch, and he explained, you know, I didn't have any exposure to mainframes in my university curriculum, but, you know, I was trained on relational databases, so they hired him and figured, you know, he can apply his relational database capabilities that he learned and had worked with and use that on DB2, for example, which is really what the focus of this particular briefing was on. So that's how this one, you know, recent hire was very excited about his career and eager to learn, you know, more about it from other professionals. And so that's just you know, one anecdotal story for you there.
Great, John. And we were talking about security, and someone wanted clarification because it is pretty amazing. The question was that 3% or 33% of people currently using pervasive encryption?
So that was 33%, which, like you say, is a surprisingly high number in some ways. There were a number of people who said, I don't know, but certainly of all the respondents that knew about it, 33% of those guys said, yeah, we are using pervasive encryption in our environment today.
Great. Do you guys, I think this question, I'm not sure if you'd know, but I'll throw it out there. Are there any specific schools to consider when looking for new hires with strong mainframe skills?
Well, as Alan said, there are a number of schools across, you know, every geography. And I would, I don't want to name them because you know, there's far too many to list, but we can certainly follow up and share that. IBM's academic initiative that we talked about partners with a number of universities. In fact, I had lunch with the local university here yesterday, you know, talking about this exact topic. But there are significantly more than a handful. There's hundreds worldwide that are participating in some form or fashion.
So John, that might be something that they could just Google the IBM's initiative, education initiative, and
Absolutely.
it would show there. So tell us one more time what the actual name of it is. I may not have said that quite correctly. IBM Educational Initiative?
Yeah, there's IBM Academic Initiative. There's also the Z Diversity program. There's a number of things that that we can share, and so we can absolutely do that.
Excellent, thanks. Okay, you said 80% plus are using Java on mainframe, and you talked a lot about big data. What underlying database technologies are being used in conjunction with Java-based apps using ZOS Connect, et cetera?
I think the most popular database on the mainframe is still DB2 on ZOS, but Alan, I think we may have had a few other data points there that you might be able to pull out. I'm putting Alan on the spot a little bit. There's a lot of data there, but that is obviously the number one. But we do see some newer database structures that clients are taking advantage of as well.
Yeah, from a ZOS point of view specifically, it is mainly DB2, although we are seeing an increasing number of people enabling their apps that sit on IMS. So we're seeing more demand from our customers. We see it in the data as well in terms of using Java with their IMS environment. And we generally see an increase in Java across the board, both from a deployment in Kix or deployment under WebSphere and all those kind of pieces. Almost every environment that can have Java in is increasingly having Java in. But from a straight data point of view, yeah, it's primarily DB2, but certainly IMS as the old legacy system is going nowhere, and people are enabling those apps either via ZOS Connect or other technologies to actually enable that data to be consumed.
Yeah, I think out of we had some follow-up questions that were asking, what are some of the ways that you're taking advantage of some of the modern technologies that are available? And of that group that was responding, I think we had about a little more than 30% that they were using some new technologies, new database technologies like NoSQL or Hadoop in-memory databases were some of the things that they were mentioning.
Okay, can you speak to the impact on the workforce due to outsourcing?
The impact on the workforce due to outsourcing. Well, I think there are a number of different outsourced providers that provide a variety of different mainframe functions, right? Whether it's application programming, whether it's systems programming, network, security, et cetera. And we have a number of the outsourcing providers or BMC clients as well, and they're also working on the same workforce demographics as well, meaning they're working to hire and refresh, their workforce as their baby boomers are retiring as well. So I'm not sure I quite understand the question there, but the changing workforce and the changing demographic workforce, affects everyone, whether you are actually managing and operating, the full gamut of your mainframe applications and operation infrastructure teams, or if you're using an outsourcer to help you in some way as well.
Okay. Here is one about mainstream business media that continues to publish negative or misleading stories about mainframe modernization. How do we collectively counter this perspective in a meaningful way? And do we need a cross-industry mainframe PR campaign?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, because I think that was our first point, which was three things to think about. How can we continue to help ensure that this platform is continuing to deliver value to organizations around the world? Number one is evangelizing the good news, right? The positive stories. And I would say everyone that's on this call that has an interest, ask what you can do to maybe share externally some of the great things that you are doing. The press would love to write stories, but to write stories, they want to hear real people, real companies talking about what they're specifically doing. I work with, hundreds of customers, and I can describe them, but if I don't have the customer's permission to talk about them specifically, frankly, the press doesn't want to write about it. So, we need to partner together to tell some of these great stories. One of the reasons that we share this research is because we think it's a way that we can promote a more positive image about the great things that clients are doing with the platform. And in fact, the Wall Street Journal did an interview with Bill Miller, who's my boss, who's the president of BMC's Z Solutions, our mainframe business unit. And, they may be doing the same thing related to this year's survey as well. So I think there's more that we can do. Certainly we're working and partnering with IBM and the other ISVs to collectively do more to promote the platform. I think that's something that we recognize and we hear consistently from our clients as well.
Such a great point, John. And while you're on that point, I have to say, if you have a story you'd like us to tell, IBM Systems Magazine is also always looking for those opportunities, so reach out. I like this one too. With some companies moving toward building cloud platforms to replace legacy mainframe platforms to support their business needs, can you provide your view on the impact of cloud on the mainframe?
Yeah, I think, you want to do it? Go ahead, Alan.
I was just going to say, so, I mean, as we've talked through all of this data, we see the mainframe going from strength to strength. Cloud was one of the areas where we were very interested in finding out more information about this year. We put some questions in there about cloud use, cloud adoption, whether people were looking to move their mainframe system to the cloud and those kind of pieces. And what we generally found was people were actually looking to interact with workloads that sit on the cloud. So the cloud systems appear to be complementing what sits on the mainframe, driving workload on the mainframe, but not necessarily replacing it. We don't see any increase. If anything, we probably see a slight decrease in people saying, no, I'm going to go away from the platform. They still see it as an integral part of their future infrastructure. And quite rightly so, given that the strengths of what the mainframe platform can deliver quite directly align with those digital business imperatives that are driving businesses as a whole.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions that are quite specific, and people are just hungry for more details beyond what's in the deck. So I'd like to direct folks once again to that slide, the thank you slide there, and that live link. And Alan, maybe you can talk to, if people are interested, what will they find in this live link and when they go here? Is it more detailed than we have here in the presentation?
I think there may be some more detail in it. Yeah, there's some additional stuff.
So yeah, please feel free. You can click on that right now and open that window and then revisit it after the webinar. Any comment on the average mainframe salary? Has it gone up or down, say, since 2000?
I don't have any. Yeah, we don't have any stats on that. That's not something that we take a look at. I think that we might have to go out to some other sources to take a look at that.
Okay. And so I'm looking through it. There are quite a number of questions, so I'm going to take some of the more general ones, gentlemen, but if there's one you want to just jump in on, please, let me know since we have so many. But sure. Here's one that's one about how are new languages like Java, I guess we've talked about that one too, guys. Should we talk about this one that's security top of mind? What are some of the ways to modernize security for the mainframe?
Yeah, I think that's one we can take. So I think as I was sharing, a lot of the respondents really cited adherence to compliance regulations, and you may have seen BMC announce last month a partnership with Corelog, and Corelog really focuses on helping clients not only ensure that their systems and their data are secure, but it also more easily helps them meet a number of compliance regulations, whether it be at HIPAA or GDPR or many others. So definitely, security, information event management, and compliance is something that many companies are focused on. And the good news is, the mainframe platform is the most secureable platform out there. One other thing I can jump into here, Janine, I think we had a couple of folks, thank you for commenting back to us. But if you just do a quick Google search and just type in IBM-Z Academic Initiative Universities, there's a nice a page there where you can actually scroll through and see different universities, as I said, across the world, a number of states here in the U.S. as well as a number of other countries that are available. So take a look at that, and you can find out where, as Alan said, the local universities are participating.
Great. Thanks, John. So I think we've pretty much taken all the questions that kind of apply to the broad audience. So if we did not get to your question today, someone will reach out to you via email. So I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, but more importantly for participating. So thank you so much for your wonderful questions. Also a special thank you to John and Alan for sharing their information and expertise with us today. Later this week, we will be sending out a link to the recording of today's webinar, so please be on the lookout for that. That concludes our webinar. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.